Chapter 4 opens with a grim spectacle at the center of the arena. TOMOE is suspended helplessly between two massive pillars, surrounded by a dark sky and floating torture instruments. Amidst the suffocating atmosphere, the sadistic witch slowly approaches, wearing a mocking smile. She relishes her victim's suffering and taunts TOMOE with condescending gestures. Though visibly exhausted and under pressure, TOMOE tries to maintain her composure. Still, the witch continues to toy with her, intensifying the oppressive mood and asserting her complete control over the situation. TOMOE screams in agony as one of the torture devices strikes her vulnerable body. Her cry echoes through the arena, met with Elizabeth's pleased expression as she praises the delightful sound. She genuinely relishes every bit of TOMOE's suffering, treating it like a pleasant melody. Meanwhile, a spectator from the upper stands points out that this is no longer a fight. TOMOE is helplessly restrained by Elizabeth's magic, being toyed with in a one-sided spectacle. There is no resistance, only ongoing torment. Screams of torture echo through the arena as instruments rain down around the helpless TOMOE. The audience watches in stunned silence, unable to call this a match anymore. From afar, two young witches observe in awe, realizing the terrifying extent of magical power. They understand how powerless an ordinary person can be against a true witch. Elizabeth smiles calmly, embodying the true nature of a witch's strength. Elizabeth commands a large array of torture devices with formidable magic, her desire standing out as exceptionally strong even among other witches. Observers begin to understand that a witch's power stems from a burning desire within them. This desire acts as an engine, consuming their mental energy as fuel to activate their powers. This concept reveals that a witch's strength is not just magical but also deeply rooted in the intensity of their inner will. In battles between witches, three factors matter most: magic, strength, and mental fortitude. But the decisive force is desire. It fuels their mental energy, which becomes magic. Elizabeth Bathory, with her overwhelming will, controls countless torture devices. Observers agree that desire is the essence of a witch's power, and Elizabeth's victory seems inevitable. Still, some audience members respond playfully, their light tone clashing with the grim situation, though not entirely wrong. She was known as someone who never gave up, no matter how dire the odds. Alongside her lord and comrades, TOMOE stood firm against impossibility. Even when outnumbered 25,000 to 5 in a situation where death was inevitable, she was the only one still determined to fight back. Though her body is bound and wounded, TOMOE's spirit remains unbroken. Memories and encouragement from those close to her reignite her resolve. With fierce eyes and blazing energy, she rises as a true ally of justice, ready to strike back and confront evil with her full strength. TOMOE struggles fiercely to break free from the magical stakes that bind her, showing her unshakable resolve. Elizabeth looks on with disdain, claiming resistance is futile as the stakes are reinforced with magic. Despite her injuries, TOMOE continues to resist, her tenacity shocking everyone around. With overwhelming strength, TOMOE yanks out the massive stakes that had restrained her. Her defiance catches Elizabeth off guard, and the audience is stunned that Elizabeth's magic was repelled by sheer power alone. Shocked reactions ripple among spectators and witches alike, recognizing this as an extraordinary feat. While Elizabeth's magic is formidable, controlling so many devices at once dilutes their power. TOMOE's physical prowess exceeds legend, shattering the magically reinforced stakes through raw strength alone. Elizabeth is left speechless, unable to comprehend what she's just witnessed. TOMOE broke free from Elizabeth's magical stakes and launched a direct attack with her massive blade. In a swift motion, she struck toward Elizabeth, who was caught off guard by her boldness. Elizabeth froze for a moment before trying to counter the sudden blow. TOMOE's slash tore through the air, displaying her overwhelming physical strength and nearly knocking Elizabeth off balance. In an instant, the two witches were locked in close combat, and Elizabeth began to show a trace of panic. With her injured body, TOMOE goes and pushes forward into a fence, seizing what may be her final chance. Her attack is swift and forceful, driving Elizabeth back. Realizing close combat is dangerous, Elizabeth attempts to retreat and switch to magic, but TOMOE's speed is too overwhelming to evade. Despite her injuries, Tomoe Gozen launches a direct assault on Elizabeth, slashing with full force in a sudden attack. Elizabeth is momentarily shocked but quickly tries to gain distance. Amidst the cheers of Tomoe's allies, she leaps high and raises her weapon with fierce determination. The attack shakes the arena, accompanied by her furious cry. With her brutal magic, Elizabeth unleashes a deadly technique called Bloody Promise, 1,000 scarlet needles. Thousands of massive stakes rain down upon the arena, forming a spiked prison that corners Tomoe from all sides. This devastating spell proves that Elizabeth still has tricks up her sleeve and intends to end Tomoe's resistance swiftly. Tomoe gasps and stands her ground, visibly cornered, but her resolve remains unbroken. This sudden manifestation buys her just enough time to create distance from Tomoe. Realizing how close she was to being defeated, Elizabeth smirks, acknowledging that if she'd hesitated even a second longer, Tomoe would have struck her down. Now resolute, she declares she won't allow Tomoe to take even a single step closer. Having successfully created distance using a barrage of magical stakes, Elizabeth is confident she has sealed Tomoe's main strength, close-quarters combat. Wearing a smug smile, she begins to plan a slow and painful torture until death. Yet, Tomoe shows no sign of surrender, even under such overwhelming pressure. But in the stands, the tide shifts. Among the crowd, Minamoto no Yoshinaka, Tomoe's lord, laughs heartily and mocks the outdated idea that a samurai can't fight from a distance. He declares that such thinking is completely obsolete. Minamoto cheer for Tomoe Gozen, boasting about a powerful weapon they possess. Although it takes 5 strong men to craft, it's powerful enough to pierce through 2 to 3 people, even with thick armor. To them, open space is where a true samurai truly shines. From within Elizabeth's magical stake circle, Tomoe remains firm. The crowd cheers for her to show her power. With a calm smile, Tomoe reveals she has been waiting for this moment. She brings her hands together, preparing to unleash a great inner force. Tomoe Gozen finally reveals her hidden magic. As the crowd cheers and her opponent stands in shock, magical light radiates from within the stakes. Everyone realizes, this is the long-concealed magical power of Tomoe Gozen. Elizabeth unleashes her finishing move by sending a barrage of torture devices flying in rapid succession, leaving no gaps, aiming straight at Tomoe. The spectators realize this is Elizabeth's final assault, while Tomoe remains still, bracing for the deadly onslaught. By avoiding close-range combat and creating distance, Elizabeth Bathory believed her victory was assured. However, Tomoe Gozen felt the same. She was ready to strike with her final technique just as the opportunity arose. A massive explosion of weapons blasts outward. The narration references the tale of the hiker, describing Tomoe Gozen as a strongbow elite soldier and a warrior worth 1,000. This overwhelming attack seems to be a living proof of her legendary reputation. Tomoe finally reveals her own magic. Amid the storm of torture weapons launched by Elizabeth, she manifests a massive and powerful magic bow. Her gaze sharpens with intense focus, ready to retaliate from afar with the strength of a legendary strongbow elite soldier. The crowd is stunned as Tomoe's true magic reveals itself, a magnificent, towering bow. Gasps erupt as people realize there is no arrow, but that's the point, Tomoe Gozen's magic is the bow itself. As a samurai's primary weapon, the bow becomes the embodiment of her magical might. Although it appears to lack an arrow, that is the essence of her spell, single arrow consecration, a magic that requires wide space to fire. Ironically, the very distance Elizabeth created becomes Tomoe's advantage to prepare her attack. Using her magic, single arrow consecration, Tomoe took advantage of the open space to summon a massive magical bow. Although there was no arrow at first, she pulled the string and formed a colossal projectile. This is the embodiment of Tomoe's justice, one shot, one judgment. Manifesting a massive magical bow, Tomoe shocks everyone with a weapon that doesn't even need arrows. Her magic, single arrow consecration, requires distance, and now that she has it, she readies her ultimate shot, calamity-severing sky bow. With one strike, Elizabeth's arm was cut off, leaving Elizabeth shocked. Jeanne d'Arc is introduced as the 32nd contestant, known as the Desireless Witch. She appears calmly in the waiting room at the exact moment Tomoe Gozen's magic is activated. Jean d'Arc calmly enters the waiting room for the next contestants, fully accepting her orders despite knowing she's unlike the other witches. With no greed and no magical abilities, she's aware that victory is out of reach. Yet, instead of fleeing or refusing, Jean chooses to fight. Reflecting on a life lived without personal desires, she quietly dons her armor, ready to face her destiny, even if it means her downfall. Inside Reims Cathedral in 1429, Jean d'Arc reflects that her battle has ended now that King Charles has been crowned. In silence and emptiness, she wonders what her life means after her purpose has been fulfilled. Despite being the hero who changed a nation's fate, she felt hollow, devoid of personal desire. While others celebrated their victory, Jean remained alone, reflecting on her lack of dreams or wants. She admits she's never truly had her own will, and even now, she doesn't know how to desire something for herself. Yet, in the eyes of others, it was exactly that purity, her lack of selfish intent, that allowed her to save her country. The old priest explains that most people are defined by their desires. Yet a person without desire is free from that limitation. Jean d'Arc, having no personal desire, is described as possessing infinite possibilities. Such a state is rare, akin to that of a god. Jean, with calm eyes now glowing with insight, begins to realize that her lack of desire is not a flaw, but a gateway to limitless potential. The sacred statue seemed to affirm this revelation, as her heart pulses toward a new destiny. Jean d'Arc runs breathlessly, her heart pounding uncontrollably. For the first time, she feels something stirring inside, a desire. In the midst of the empty chamber, she clutches her racing chest and questions if this is what it means to want something. As her heartbeat echoes louder and louder, a new feeling is born deep within her consciousness. Ever since witnessing the other witches fighting with true conviction, one emotion awakens, and from within her long silent heart, something has finally emerged. Surrounded by a flurry of soft feathers, symbolizing the awakening of a new inner power, Jean is struck with awe and disbelief. A transformation begins, one shaped by love and desire. This marks the turning point where Jean d'Arc ceases to be merely an obedient vessel, she becomes the embodiment of boundless potential awakened by a newly born will. Jean d'Arc, once a witch without desire, initially believed herself useless for lacking ambition or magic. But after witnessing the fierce resolve of other witches, a spark ignited within her. Her heart raced wildly, and she began to question if she, too, was starting to desire something. Amidst the turmoil, a powerful awareness took form. A spiritual figure with wings appeared behind her, symbolizing her transformation. Jean d'Arc had awakened, discovering love and desire for the first time. Now, she stands ready to move forward by her own will.